Oh, still not ready. Step number 4 is organizing your seed starting tools. Now that can look very different from person to person depending on which direction you go. Some people will go out and purchase all the equipment that they need. Others may gather some items from home that may have gone into recycling that they can actually use in their seed starting process. That can really help to minimize cost as you go through that season. So I have a little bit of both. I've been gardening for a number of years and I've collected items and just reuse them every year until maybe they wear out. And if it's something that I purchased that is available now and maybe a more sturdier product, I will go ahead and up my game a little bit on that and purchase something so that I'm not having to repurchase those items very often. So let's just quickly go over the different items that you may be able to purchase or buy to help you get started in your seed sowing. So let's start with home items that you could possibly recycle. So I have a number of various Tupperware items that either the lids are lost or they've been broken, and instead of throwing them out into recycling, I can go ahead and use them to put my seed containers in when I've got soil and seeds in them to catch the water. You don't have to go out and buy fancy trays. I do have a number of trays, but you don't have to go out and do that. You can use any kind of Tupperware item that can help catch the water. Now, items that you also can use for planting your seeds, as long as you poke holes in the bottom, you can use old butter containers. I have these plastic yogurt containers that in a pinch, if I want something a little bit smaller than these bigger containers over here, I can punch holes in those and use those to start my seeds. I also have these little small ones that came from some rice pudding my husband had, and I thought, oh, those would be nice for little seed starts as well. So I kept all of those. And another thing that you can use is you can use this. This was rather small. This was a cucumber container, but you know, they have ones that are bigger that are like strawberries. They already have perforated holes in the bottom. You could fill that with soil, plant your seeds, and it actually could also double as a humidity dome when you can close that. Or you can take it off and you can put it in another tray. And then some of the other items that are examples of things you can use are salad trays to hold your containers. You can fit a number of them in some of these containers. I think I have squeezed 4 of these before in containers. So that's kind of a nice little container that was basically free because this came with some type of a food item. And these I recycled from either plants that I've purchased or from a nursery that I went to that was recycling them. So yeah, you can use a number of these items instead of sending them into the recycling. At least they'll get another life by using them for this purpose, and eventually they'll wear out, but for now you could use those. Some other items for moisture catching are these flat trays. You can find these at a number of hardware stores like Home Depot, Lowe's, those types of stores. They are a little bit less sturdy than this particular one. So I have used those for a number of years, but they are pretty flimsy. When you get a lot of weight in them and you pick them up, they twist, they turn, they crack. And those particular ones came with, where's my lid? Oh, here it is. Those particular ones came with this kind of lid that would fit on top of it for your humidity dome. So you can fit all kinds of, and you can see that this one is a little bit kind of weaker as well, but I have kept those over the years. They have survived. But in these trays, you can fit a number of things. So as I mentioned earlier, these were containers that I recycled from a nursery. And I can fit, I think, up to 15 of those in there. So you have your soil, your seeds go in there, but here's your water catch. Now, after you have them filled, you can either use this dome that came with the tray from the hardware store, or since I had up my game and buy these trays probably 2 years ago, so I've used these for a few seasons. These are super, super sturdy. They're not twisting, they're not cracking. So I got a set of 4, I don't know if it was a set, but I did end up purchasing 4 of them from online from Bootstrap Farmer. I was really impressed with the trays since I was really struggling with my trays. So I have used these other humidity domes, but this year I went ahead and I purchased these from Bootstrap Farmer, and they're a little bit taller, and they have these little dials on top where you can regulate the humidity. Now what I liked about these versus these that you can get from the hardware store is that they're taller. So what I struggled with sometimes on these were the height. Did I want something that was a little bit taller, you know, as you grow your, these particular containers are tall in here, so it's already taking up some space. So if I have my soil up to here and then my seeds start to grow, those other plastic containers were a little bit too shallow. So I thought this would do the trick. I also saw someone who was using these, so I thought, oh, that'd be a great idea. So I really do love these trays. They twist a little bit, but these things are sturdy. They are not going anywhere. So I can't say enough about those. So you have your tray, and then you can put any number of items in there. You can fit your butter containers in there. You could fit your little round guys in there. The only thing to keep in mind with the round ones, because of their circumference, sometimes you can't fit a lot of them in there. You know, I have these food trays as well from like where you get takeout, and you could fit a number of little guys in there. So you can just be creative, use whatever you have, save between now and maybe a month or two before you start seed saving and see what you can come up with. The other thing that I did purchase from Bootstrap Farmer a few years ago were these seed trays. You know, sometimes when you buy little flowers from the hardware store or any kind of store, nursery, they're really flimsy, they're really squishy like this, and you know, you can cut right through them when you're planting, and they don't last long. And so I would save them and use them, but then they wouldn't last long. And then again, I saw somebody using these and they were like, you are not crushing these. You can put all your weight on them, you can put a brick on them, they are not crushing down at all. So I went ahead and ordered them. The problem was I didn't really pay attention to what I was ordering, and I ordered a huge sleeve of them. I think I got 60, and I've not even become close to using them. But the nice thing about these is, let's just give you a little demonstration about how these fit so nicely in these trays. You can get quite a few of them in these trays. You know, can fill up the whole tray, so you can fit 12 of them in there. Now, I don't generally use these cells all the time. This is probably for another video as far as starting seeds, is because the container is so small that you kind of need to be ready to either pot these up once they germinate and they've got a number of set of leaves if you're not going to plant them right away. So if you're not going to plant them right away in the garden, you probably would want to pot them up because their root structure will outgrow these. That's why I haven't used these as much, but if I could plan my seed starting a little bit more on the dial, on the clock of getting them out in the garden, I would use these more. So then you also, let's see, what else do we have? You also want a spray bottle to spray your seeds when you first are planting them. The other thing that you might want to consider getting is a grow light. I do have a indoor little greenhouse that I use. It has, I think, if not 3 or 4 trays that I can hang lights from, and I will use that. I have a feeling I might outgrow that this year since I'm growing on a larger scale. I do have a couple of these grow lights that I hang from in there. You can use natural light. You're not going to get as good as result from natural light because the plants are going to stretch and try to reach that light, so they might get long and leggy. And I've noticed that when I've used these adjustable lights, I can keep them and adjusting them so the plants stay stocky and full and not so long and leggy. So that's another suggestion. And then obviously you're going to want a good seed starting mix. There's a number of them out there. I have used a number of them. This one I particularly use as an Omni product. I try to use as many organic type items that I can. And then you're going to want something to write on and mark what your seedlings are so you don't forget. You think you might remember, but as time goes on, you'll forget what was where. And some things that germinate and come up, they look similar, and so you may not know. Or, you know, when you're growing your peppers, you may want to keep your green, your red, your orange, your yellow separate and know what those are. One other thing you might consider is a seedling warming mat. So I've never used one before, but I wanted to try this year for when I am germinating my tomatoes and peppers. They like a little bit warmer soil. And typically what I've done is I have taken my tray and make sure I move it to a warm place. Like if my bathroom is warm at night, I'll move it into my bathroom. And so I'm always moving it back and forth, back and forth. So this year I didn't want to do that. So I went ahead and bought the seedling mat, and they fit right underneath these trays. and you plug them in, and it should keep the soil nice and warm to help germinate those seeds. You just want to use it just until the seeds germinate. You don't need it after that. And some of them you can purchase thermostat that you can use with these mats to regulate that temperature. I didn't go that route and purchase that since I've never used one before, and I just want to kind of try and see how it works this year. The only other thing that I use that I don't have here is I have an old plastic bucket that I use to put my seed starts in and moisten it before I put it in the cells. So that's something that you may want to consider, having something you can mix your seed starting mix in. Other than that, I can't think of anything else I use. I'm sure I'll think of something when I actually go to start sowing some indoor seeds, but for now, I think that's a good example of what you might need to get going and get organized. So the final step is developing a plan of when to sow your seeds. Now you want to take a look at each of the seed packets, and it should give you some information on them as far as when the best time is to sow them, either indoors and getting them ready, the transplants ready for outdoors, or if you should direct sow and when you should do that. Now I've always struggled with that, getting the timing just right. I know that Mother Nature doesn't always cooperate, and so best laid plans don't always work out. I've been stuck many times with having two-leggy tomatoes or peppers or cucumbers or squash that are ready to go out, but the weather's not cooperating. So, any method we take is not a fail-safe, but anything that I can do this year to help me mitigate my troubles from previous years, I'm going to do. So I'm not sure what methods many other people use, but this year what I decided to do was I took that spreadsheet that I developed earlier that lists all my seeds and all the pertinent information about them, and I duplicated that list, and then I just recreated the columns to help me determine when I'm going to sow those seeds, whether they be indoors or outdoors. So I looked at the seed packet, I looked at the recommendations, and then I looked at the calendar, and considering my first frost date, what would be the best time for me to sow seeds indoors, and a column for when I should be sowing them outdoors. So that's going to be my best laid plan. It was a little bit of a tedious project, so I'm not suggesting that that's the resolution to everybody's seed planting preparing, but I wanted to share that with you because I have struggled over the years trying to get the best target times. I'd be interested to know what your plan is for determining when to sow your seeds. You can always leave a comment down below, and then maybe I'll glean some information and get some support and help from you guys. So if you like this video's content, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. I plan to share more of my gardening journey with you, from sowing seeds, caring for them, and transplanting them, and then see how my garden grows. Thanks so much for joining me today. See you next time. Bye.